and he tells me that he's there with his friends and they're in the Taliban. I'm like, you're kidding though, right? Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here today and listening to my story. So today's story is about Afghanistan. I'm kind of going in alphabetical order when it comes to these Storytime series, and I'm going to try and recount as much detail as possible while having looked at my journal and also from just my memory and looking at pictures as well. And I'll try and plug as much as I can in when it comes to pictures and videos of my travels to each country in the world. I know this is long awaited and I promised you guys this, so without further ado, let's dive in. During my expedition, I traveled to all 193 sovereign nations, including Taiwan, Kosovo, and Palestine. I also traveled to Vatican City as well. And Afghanistan is one of those sovereign nations. It's located in Asia, and it's bordered by a few of the stans, like Pakistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and of course, Turkmenistan. It's also bordered by Iran as well. The two spoken languages are Pashto and Dari, and one thing it's actually known for is the Afghanistan Marathon, which also incorporates women in addition to men, so it's kind of taking one step forward with regards to female equality in sport in Afghanistan. I think that's really cool, and it's also been a goal of mine to race the Afghanistan Marathon. It's a pretty hot and dry country, and it's actually pretty easy to get there just by flying Emirates from Dubai straight to Kabul. Unfortunately, Afghanistan is a pretty impoverished nation where women don't have many rights at all. In fact, when I was there, I would ask to speak to some of the women just to talk to them, both on and off camera, and they didn't really want to, which I completely respected, but it just comes to show that it's a country where it is male dominant, and of course it's 99% Muslim as well. But other than that, I found the people to be very nice and kind, and I know I say that a lot, but I don't say it lightly. People in Afghanistan were very hospitable towards me, and whether they were on the streets or whether they were in the hotel, in the airport, I felt welcomed there as a foreign Westerner at that. I covered my head and I wore a hijab just to be respectful. I know in a lot of places they say don't wear a hijab or a burqa if you're not Muslim, and to that I say go with whatever the people in that country tell you. So out of respect to that country, if they would rather see you in a hijab or covering your hair or covering exposed body parts, then just do it out of respect. Like, it's easy, you know, and I think they know well enough that you're probably not Muslim, so either way it's fine. Just respect the people and their culture, and they're not asking you to do much if it's just covering your head or covering your exposed body parts. It's just respect. I traveled to Afghanistan in December of 2016, and it was one of the last countries that I had visited. It was a country where I required a visa as an American citizen, and that visa took a little bit of time. It took a little bit of back and forth to the Afghanistan embassy in New York City, and it also took a little bit of planning. As a solo female traveler, it's important to be careful everywhere, but especially in a country where women are not dominant, and women are not dominant anywhere, but where women have less rights than men. You want to be respectful. If you value your life as a woman, then you want to be as respectful as possible without giving away much of your own rights as a woman when you travel to a country like Afghanistan. I would say covering up is just respectful. If it were something where I'd have to take my clothes off and lose my own dignity as a woman, then that's something where I wouldn't feel comfortable going to that country. So when it came to where I was going to stay in Afghanistan, that was a big question. I had looked at many hotel options, and the one that I was going to stay in, I actually can't remember the name of it, but I had a specific budget allocated to countries like Afghanistan where I knew I had to be a little bit more cautious with regards to my safety and where I was staying solo traveling as a woman. And I had contacted that hotel, but no one was really responding to my inquiries for booking these hotels. And everyone knows that the most expensive and luxurious hotel in Kabul is the Serena Hotel. And I really didn't want to stay there because I knew it wasn't really going to give me a cultural experience. And obviously I'm not looking to stay in like posh hotels. I didn't look like this when I was traveling around the world. I wore one outfit the entire time, and it was dirty, and just did not care about my appearance or where I was staying as long as it was safe. And I want to note that I had all my external hard drives with me for my expedition around the world, all my proof that I need to send to Guinness World Records to get verified, my camera equipment, my computer. So I did have to be careful about my belongings, and I had to stay in a safe place that I knew wasn't going to get broken into, or I had a risk of losing my belongings. And you have a risk everywhere you go, but I knew I need to be particularly careful in Kabul. I wasn't on a rugged trip. I was on a business business trip, speaking to university students and meeting with mayors and ministers of tourism and kings and going to networking events around the world. So this was a business trip for me. It wasn't just a rustic backpacking trip. And if it were, then I wouldn't have ever thought about staying at the Serena. I would have just tried to get the most rustic experience I could. In considering Hotel Serena, I had to consider what had happened there in the past years, at least closest to the time where I was going to be staying there. And 2 years prior to when I was going to be staying there was a huge attack that killed 9 people and injured 2 people as well. The Taliban militants ended up barging into the restaurant of the hotel, firing at its guests that were there celebrating Nowruz, the Persian New Year. Of course, this sounded very alarming, and to anyone would be reason to not stay there. However, I looked at it as, well, they might be upping their security precautions maybe, and I made a vlog on this as well. But the morning of, I was up at like 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock. I remember I was scrambling because I was waiting for their response last minute to get back to me to see if they could have me stay there, and I knew that they would have probably had to organize some sort of taxi to and from the airport to the hotel. Anyways, that morning I left to go to the airport. I flew Emirates to Kabul, which actually made me feel pretty safe. Emirates is one of the best airlines in the world, and I love it. I love flying with them. They even treat economy passengers with dignity and respect that every airline should. I love them. So in flying there, I also saw a lot of expats, a lot of Westerners. Obviously, it's not really a place that you're gonna go vacation, so I assume they were expats or military or something like that. It just made me feel safer knowing that I wasn't the only Westerner on that flight. It was a pretty packed flight as well. So once I arrived, I went through border controls pretty easy, and then I went into the bathroom and put my shawl over my head. All right, just got through border control, and now I'm heading to the hotel now. And then walked out, and I noticed a lot of people staring. It's okay. Like, I would stare too if I kind of came out of the airport as a solo female traveler. And I just remember it being like really hot, but also not the worst airport I've ever been to either. It wasn't like super run down or anything. There wasn't any air conditioning in the airport. I just remember it being pretty decent. So I walked outside. I didn't know how intense it was gonna be in Kabul. I'd never been there before. I thought I could just haul a taxi and take it to the hotel myself, but they ended up having the concierge or the guest services manager meeting me. I don't know if they did this because I was a woman either. It might be different if you're a man traveling there solo, but I had no choice. They had to meet me at the airport, and then we both had to get in a taxi and take that to the hotel, which wasn't actually too far from the airport. And I'm actually glad they met me. I felt safer, and I didn't have any cell phone reception, which I had an international cell phone plan. Usually I'd use that to get from point A to point B. I know it's not like that rugged, but like I said before, safety first, especially when you're trying to change the world and, you know, meet with students and plant trees all over the world and make a change, and you have a huge mission that you're trying to adhere to, and also like a record to break. You know, you have to kind of be a little bit careful. So it was okay. So I felt like I made the right decision by booking the Hotel Serena and having him meet me there. And he was very nice, and we got in the taxi, started driving, and you really see the true authenticity of what is Kabul, which a lot of people don't get to see unless you're actually right there. And I thought it was really exciting. I wasn't scared. I just thought it was exciting. You know, there were barricades with men behind them with machine guns. I mean, when I was there, it was like an active war zone. I mean, didn't know what was going to happen at any given time. It was honestly really cool to be there and a really eye-opening experience. Very first time I experienced my own privilege and what I had and what a lot of the world doesn't have was when I traveled to Costa Rica and Nicaragua at the age of 18, and the very first time in my life experiencing impoverished nations, impoverished communities, and realizing what I actually had. That was the very first eye-opening experience that changed me for the rest of my life. And so seeing this wasn't too, especially after having traveled all around the world really in a lot of other impoverished nations, it wasn't really a surprise, and I felt kind of at home and comfortable amidst it all, even walking around the streets and everything. But it definitely is a culture shock if you're not used to it. And it was very unique, and those are sights that I won't forget. Checked in the hotel. The hotel was actually a really cultural kind of experience in and of itself, which I kind of appreciated. The decor and the food and the little welcome drink that they gave you. It was really, really incredible how they kind of set up that hotel and the decor and everything that they had. But before that, entering the Serena Hotel, there were 4 or 5 modes of gates that I had to go through and checkpoints in order to enter the hotel, that's something I'd never seen. Even in Mogadishu, I only had to go through 2. This was like 4 or 5. It was a lot of checkpoints even to get into the hotel. They first had to open the gates, so there was a gate, and like no one could get through with guards on each side. I would consider that one form of entry. And then they had to go around the car with these things that would see if there was explosives underneath the car. They would check the trunk, so that was number 2. And then they would have us get out of the car, and I had to go into a room where there was just a woman, very tiny room. I mean, I want to say it was like 6 feet tall or so, very small cube, and she had to check my purse, my bags, my backpack, and she also had to check me. So that was number 3. Number 4 was I had to put all of my bags through this conveyor belt like they had at the airport, and this was in a completely separate room, and they had to check all those bags with x-rays. And then I was allowed in. So I think it was 4 checkpoints, 4 modes of security just to get into this hotel. Finally, I was allowed in. It was very quiet inside, very ominous, and I was greeted by the concierge who had met me at the airport. And, you know, he showed me to my room, closed the door, and I thought, what am I doing now? What am I gonna do? I want to go out and explore, but obviously with all the precautions and the procedures with getting in and out of the hotel, and obviously I don't think I'm allowed to actually walk around alone. I'd asked him, I said, can I go out? He's like, you're gonna have to go with me or someone else. There's a woman that can take you out, but you just can't be out on your own. And so I said, okay, like, I'm not gonna try and push that. Respect, number 1, respect. And they're not trying to harm me, they just want me to be careful. They want to look out for their guest, and I just don't think it's culture in Afghanistan for women, especially Western women, to go venturing out on their own. I'd relaxed a little bit, called my parents, make sure I was safe, and I did a little bit of vlogging, and then I decided to head out. Can't remember if it was that day or the next day, but one of the days we headed out on the streets and just walked around, took me around to the market. Just literally, I wanted to just see, I didn't want to see the touristy stuff, I just wanted to go and see what the culture was like, what the people were like, you know, just walking around and just getting the most true sense of Kabul and the culture of Afghanistan in the short period of time that I had there, which was only a few days, and just trying to see as much as possible, you know, as much as I possibly could. So we walked around the streets, side streets, saw a bunch of kind of daily life sort of stuff, went up to this man and I wanted to kind of interview him, just so I had it, I guess, for YouTube and for myself, and just trying to like pretend like I'm a travel host or something. Anyways, I ask the dumbest questions when I'm faced with people because I'm an introvert actually, and I'm not that good with coming up with questions on the spot or topics on the spot. When I first meet someone, I'm kind of more held back. So my questions are kind of stupid, don't judge. I was like, how do you like Afghanistan? Do you like Americans? Just questions that just came off the top of my head that weren't really that well thought out. I actually didn't think I'd be interviewing anyone, but the concierge said that, you know, film if you want, credit for yourself and for the experience. I said, sure. So I've had 2 very powerful handshakes in my life. The first one was this one. Second one was actually in North Korea, which you can find my North Korea vlog, but when I do my story time about North Korea, I'll tell you about that too. This one, I went to shake the man's hand who I was interviewing. By the way, one thing I'm not good at is names. It doesn't even matter if it's like a friend that I met like a year ago or a month ago. I can't remember names. And it's just, I've been really bad at names my whole life, so I can't remember the guy's name. I went out to shake his hand and he kind of looked at it. And listen guys, I did enough research to know that Muslim men don't shake the hand of Muslim women, especially in their own culture. But when it comes to foreign women, a lot of men are okay with that. They do it in business, they do it at events. And my host actually explained to me that the more educated Muslim men of Afghanistan, in this case, it's normal to shake a foreign woman's hand because they're educated on it. They're not Muslim and it has nothing to do with that. Their the cultures are completely different. They understand that. So it's okay for them and they're fine with it. But for men who are not educated on foreign cultures and women of different culture and of their religion, then it's seen as like, okay, I shouldn't be shaking any woman's hand, period. So I just want to clarify that. For me to reach my hand out was not disrespectful to the Muslim men who are educated. They know that, well, this woman's not Muslim, she's not part of my culture. It's fine, like normal to shake her hand, but if they're not educated, then it's not normal for them. So I just want to clarify that. That's what my host told me, and he was from Afghanistan, and I'm going to listen to that. It's just, and then I researched it and it ends up being what it is. That's kind of the truth of it all. It's a very impoverished nation, and a lot of people don't have the education that they deserve. Hey guys, so in editing this video, I just wanted to include a website called globalgiving.org, which lists a ton of nonprofit organizations that help with education in Afghanistan, just in case you're interested in donating or learning more. So I'll put the link in a card right here in the top right corner or in the description box below. Feel free to click them to learn more. So you can't judge them for that. It's kind of how it is. And obviously if we were in a different setting, maybe not on the street, it would be a different story. But in this case, it was obvious that maybe he hadn't been educated that much enough to know that he can shake my hand as a foreign woman who's not Muslim. Anyways, I reached my hand out. He shook his jacket over his arm and had me shake his jacket. That was really a powerful moment because it was a huge educational moment for myself and also for him and for the 3 men that were standing around him watching it. They encouraged him to shake my hand. My host, he did as well. He said, listen, it's not a problem. If it were, he would have been like, listen, we don't shake hands here with women. And so it was a huge, powerful, wow kind of moment, like, aha, I understand and I'm learning right now and it's really incredible. He didn't like me. I wouldn't like me either if I just walked up on the street as he was kind of doing his thing and with his guy friends. I mean, very strange. It's just strange in general, even if you're on the street here and someone walks up to you, it's like. Anyways, I'll have the video linked down below. I think you can click it right here as well. You can watch it for yourself and kind of get that experience. One of my most viewed videos on YouTube. A couple of the dishes that I had there that were really incredibly delicious were, this is lamb dough piazza. It's a traditional food from this region, actually this country. And this is dough, a drink. I could go on and on about so many more thoughts and feelings and experiences that I had in Afghanistan, but I don't want this video to be too long. Maybe I'll figure out like a part 2 to some of these countries if you guys want it. So if maybe some experiences are more intense and deeper than others, then I'll share further videos on that. So really quickly, I'm editing this vlog and I forgot one really important part of the story of when I was in Afghanistan. It was so bizarre and I cannot solve it to this very day, but I was leaving Kabul, I was going back to Dubai, and I was in this huge line waiting. It was so hot and there were a lot of people heading back to Dubai, but there were no other Western women in that line, and not a problem for me at all, but I ended up striking up conversation with a couple people I was in line with because we were waiting for so long. And one of them was this really tall man, and he was in this brown colored thwab, I think it's called. It's kind of like a male version of a burqa that women wear in Islamic cultures, and this was brown. It was kind of like a long dress, and he wasn't wearing like a hat or anything that I've seen them wear, or like a kind of a covering. I should know the terminology a little bit better, but anyways, we were talking in line and his English was actually, it was pretty good. I said, oh, you're heading back to Dubai? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, are you from Afghanistan? Or where are you from? He's like, yeah, I'm from Afghanistan. I said, oh, cool. He's like, very randomly, he was like, yeah, my friends and I are in the Taliban, you know, and we're just heading back. It's a job for us, so it's just, you know, what we have to do to support our families. And I said, okay. Yeah, and he knew I was American. He asked where I was from, so I wasn't nervous. I mean, on the expedition, I had to kind of swallow the fact that I might not make it through this expedition alive, and it's just as a woman traveling solo, and you just never know what's gonna happen. There was a lot of terrorism going on at that point, and we were heading back on Emirates Airlines to Dubai, and he tells me that he's there with his friends and they're in the Taliban. I'm like, you're kidding though, right? Are you kidding or no? He's like, no, we're serious, it's a job. And I said, okay. And we're going on a plane now? And he's like, yeah, it's fine, you'll see. I'm like, cool. At that point, I really wish I had kind of a shot of whiskey or two to ease the nerves, but I wasn't too nervous because, like I said, I had already accepted my own death, essentially. Something I really had to accept during my expedition. And so I was like, whatever is. And, you know, sure, I could have said something about it or told someone, but I was too nervous. What do you do when you're faced with that as a woman in a different, you know, and I said, listen, what's meant to be will. I don't know what I can do about it. We ended up going through security. Him and his friends were able to just swift right through security. They didn't have to check any of their bags or anything. They didn't have to go through the metal detector thing, nothing. And I did, and everyone else did. So I was like, what am I gonna do though? What was I gonna do in that moment? And the whole flight over to Dubai, which wasn't that long, I think it was 2 hours. Yeah, a little nerve-wracking for that flight. Anyways, it ended up being okay, but it did make me realize that in America, and I don't want to get into politics or anything, but you know, terrorism has been a huge issue since 9/11 and even before that. And you know, to hear him say that he's in the Taliban, I'm sure any other American would want to pick a fight. And I'm not there to pick a fight. I'm not there to cause any trouble. I was on a peace mission. That's how they have to support their families in some cultures. When you travel the world, you realize a lot about culture and politics and religion, and what can you do other than just learn. I mean, you're in their culture. You're putting yourself in that situation. So the best you can do is learn from it. And I was in the military. There's really nothing I could do about that. And even speaking up about it would have, who knows, they might have been joking. Then I would have suddenly been a target because I'm an American and there was, you know, the war going. It's just, yeah, I couldn't get involved. But very very interesting part of the story, and I could not leave with that one out. So on that note, that is kind of the gist of my Afghanistan story. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you love this video, please be sure to like it, as it really helps out my channel, and be sure to subscribe too to see more videos like this. And otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.